everybody, Nick here, and today I've got a very exciting disassembly and maintenance video for you on this little guy. This is the WE Knives Blitz, and the reason this is super exciting to me is that WE Knives has finally fixed their Achilles heel, at least in this model. They are using actual Torx screws. You can see here they have done away with their star screws, and as I've mentioned on a number of occasions, the main reason that I do not buy knives made by WE is those screws, because otherwise they are doing incredible work. They're just kneecapping themselves by using awful fasteners. And so I'm super excited to see, what this knife can do with actual screws. I think that's going to be great. And so right here I'm using T8, and these seem to work just fine. No freaking problem. They appear to be the same length, which is good. And then pop out the pivot here. And there we go, case closed. Interestingly, yeah, this is a one-piece pivot, although it looks like there might be a backspace, a surround sort of thing. This is a one-piece sort of affair, and now we can just pop the knife open and pop the whole thing apart. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's coming apart here slowly but surely. Well, there you go, whatever. One interesting thing about this guy is that there are full liners underneath there. Landed on its spine. That's impressive. But yeah, this is a knife that is using full liners underneath the G10. Yeah, it's G10, which is kind of neat, I gotta say, and it's something I appreciate very much. One other thing I'll note is that the liners are fully coated. I don't know exactly what this coating is, but it looks like some sort of paint is something or another. But look, I appreciate that very much because that helps to resist rust. Even though these are not parts that show and they didn't need to do that, well, except here, I guess they did for it to be external. That's a nice thing that they did there. So construction-wise, we can see that this is very straightforward, and God, was that easy to take apart. Thank you so much, WE, for making that change. But anyways, let's go ahead and clean things out. This is factory fresh, so it's not super, I don't know, interesting or different in terms of dirtiness, but here it is, and it's fine. So we got ourselves a ceramic detent ball here, which is nice, as well as ceramic bearings, which are also nice. There's the other bearing. So that's good. Just pop out that other bearing here. It looks like this has been lubed with some sort of a thicker grease, or maybe just a high viscosity oil. And so I actually suspect that the action is about to get a little bit better once we put something in there. It's maybe a little bit more knife, a little bit more friendly to a speedy action. So that's good. You can see that, especially, you can see, the bearing race was left painted. And that's okay, I guess. You can see that they did, in fact, they reground this area, so that was okay. But, yeah, so this will, as we clean it out, probably display some increase in smoothitude, if you will. Popping that out. Do the same thing over here, and yeah, we are getting rid of some gunk, and that's the case anytime you have like a coating on a blade that gets towards the bearings. The bearings will collect some gunk as that coating wears off, and so again, it's not a bad idea to do these kind of maintenances, and I also think it's not a bad idea to do one fairly early on in the knife's life cycle, shortly after you get the knife, although after you've used it some, so that it, I don't know, just so that you've got fewer potential issues. Interesting. Okay, this is different. So look at that. That is, they've kind of made a ledge on the G10 into which this pivot, or against which this pivot stops. It's kind of like the Grimsmos did a similar thing on the Rask, but this just is a way of making what would have otherwise been a non-tooled free spinning pivot not free spinning. Look, this isn't like super impressive to me. I mean, it's beat the heck already, and I can't see that lasting too long. But at the same time, they're addressing the issue, and it's good at least. So okay, reassembly time. But that does mean that as you're putting this back together, you're going to want to make sure that you are your pivot's in the right position, or else you're going to be tightening down in a way that's not helpful. I'm going to go ahead and use 10-weight nano oil, and I'm using this little pen applicator because it's been helping me to cut down on my over-lubrication lately. But, it all works about the same. There we go. And I'm just lubricating here, and then I'll put a little bit onto the pivot itself. Just draw that on there. All right, now let's drop a set of bearings down onto here. There we go. Oh, actually, these were cage out. This is something that I do not believe matters at all. The bearings are the things that should be touching. It shouldn't matter whether or not the cage, which way the cage is facing, but it is something that if I happen to remember it and notice it, it probably can't hurt, might help. So there you go. Put a little bit of lubrication on the detent ball path. And a little bit here. I got disoriented because usually you end up doing the lock side first, but because this guy had the pivot coming in that side, it makes more sense to take this approach. Put a little bit of lube there. Drop bearing in there, and again, we'll face it outwards and just rotate it a little bit. Bam, bam, bam. And there is nothing that's stopping this knife from being completely strippable in the field or what have you. Now that it's using real fasteners and whatnot, it just makes things just nice. Oh, man. This is what we should have been doing a long time ago. And the sound that you're hearing right now is ZT's terrified screams. Because if WE Knives is able to continue using these kinds of reasonable, I'm not going to call them high-end, because they're the ones who've been behind the times using terrible screws. But if they're able to use actual screws in a variety of their lineup, it will remove their chief Achilles heel, in my personal estimation at least, and it will make them a much bigger threat to the major players in the American and otherwise knife market. WE Knives has been artificially handicapping their knives for all of their existence, and once that is removed, oh my God, are they going to be a force? I mean, already, look at who's using WE Knives for mid-techs and things like that, and how good those are when they're... Anyways, you've heard this rant before. I don't need to explain to you why proprietary screws are awful. You know. And tighten this down a little bit. And they're using just one fastener size throughout. I mean, they've done a great thing here. That's great. And then we'll check the action here. Oh, yeah. Zero blade play. Pivot is seated fully, which is good. I'm going to see if I can reduce or loosen the pivot a little bit, and if that helps anything. There we go. Nice. Nice action. But look, that was really freaking easy. So WE Knives, thank you for using actual screws and just one size of them. And oh, man, please keep that up. You will own the world. Which is, you know, a good thing for we, maybe not so much for others. But at the moment, very least, I'm going to go carry this guy and do a review for it. So keep an eye out. But there you go. Hope this has been interesting, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful and non-proprietary rest of your day. Bye now.